And with that, we are online. So this is going to be the second attempt to have a hangout with Chaosism since he broke the second code. Obviously, God intervened in the first one, and that was not super helpful to us. But with that said, Chaosism is here. His channel, if you guys want to check him out after the thing is over, that's actually linked in the description below, as well as everything else that's usually linked there, which means it's certainly not important, except for his channel. That's an important link you should hit. With that said, we'll just have Chaosism introduce himself as if God hadn't intervened the last time.
Yeah, I must have done something to get on his bad side. But in any case, so much. As if God.
You're right.
All right, hang on. Let me fix something here.
Oh no, that's not a good sign.
Shit. I don't know why this is messing up. All right, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I was able to hear you before too.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, something glitched over here, but okay.
Let's try.
Yeah. Anyhow, I have a small channel I haven't touched in a little while here. That was kind of inspired by me and my best friend who was a Christian. And at that time, a couple of years ago, I actually didn't even know what the word atheist was, which probably was like only 3 or so years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I went to I think some random YouTube videos, kind of, actually even then kind of cringe at the amazing atheists bombastic approach a little bit.
A very front forward facing approach, sometimes with his genital regions.
Yeah. Yeah, and then ventured and found some random forum online and basically played the part of asking a question that incited a big war between the atheists and theists on there, which was always kind of interesting. So I'd always stand in the middle when I didn't know anything. And I just watched the two go back and forth, and I'd try and pick out what the problem is and what they're fighting over. With the whole goal of reconciling some of the questions me and my friend had. So from there, I ended up, gathering some knowledge, thinking about things, learning philosophy, some psychology. It ended up being a lot of psychology. Having a couple of formal debates on that site, which went pretty well, but that site was kind of not worth it.
Yeah, fair enough. If they were able to divulge into blood sports types of behavior, then I would say they're probably not the most useful area for trying to gather information, especially that's not unbiased.
Right. But it's kind of like the boon of people like Kent Hovind and whatnot, the people that spew all kinds of nonsense. Even people from the Flat Earth Society actually have a good place because they incite you to look deeper into what you barely understand to be able to try and convince someone else.
Yep. And speaking of technology errors that came last time, I think I figured out what the problem is. My charger apparently has fried itself. Like it's actually burned. That's weird.
That is not a good thing.
That is not a good sign. We're going to plug the phone up again anyway and see what happens. It's a Moto. The things last forever.
Right.
But hopefully, if we see any fire or light shows behind there and I don't immediately catch it, if you guys can let me know.
Well, that'd make a pretty good show if it just.
If anything, it would.
May be the last show, possibly. We don't want that.
The last show of Suris. Hey guys, I have my job. Oh, speaking of that, I have my job. I had a job interview on Thursday, and it would be really bad if I died right before that, because that would kind of suck. That would not be fun. I would not like that. But with that said, I think you and I are on the exact same thought process as far as people like TJ are concerned. I don't think that he's bad. But I think the bombastic, loud, obnoxious, disrespectful approach, I think it had its place, and I think its place is very gone now. Because once, as far as I'm concerned, once the conversation has started, then the time for that is over, and the theist versus atheist conversation has very much started in full for years now. I don't think there's a reason for the bombastic approach anymore. I think now we can have a more reasoned discussion because the ice has already been broken now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of merit to that. I came in, I guess, late compared to all that anyway.
Same.
I mean, just a couple of years ago.
I was a theist a couple of years ago. I was a Christian. So, yeah, I feel the exact same way. By the time... I had heard of The Amazing Atheist and Cult of Dusty and stuff like that. I had heard of that kind of on the wind. but it was never something that really it was never something that resonated with me because I was actually a Christian during that time, so I'd never even checked out those channels. But then I hopped on here and went, oh, wait a minute, those are channels that do exist, but they're like, I got introduced to YouTube atheism through people like Holy Kool-Aid, Godless Cranium, Cosmic Skeptic, and they're very reasonable. Like the way that they argue, the way that they speak is very reasonable. And when you kind of juxtapose that with the more loud center of atheism, it just the two don't jive very well. Like the message resonated with me at first. Oh, God. Secular saying, who didn't use the calendar? See, here's the thing. I definitely don't use the calendar as far as Another Freaking Atheist is concerned. I'm going to tell Don this myself because he streams all the time, almost non-stop. There is no use trying to get in a time where Don is not streaming. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, I have to take some of the fault for that, though. My schedule is pretty crazy and unpredictable, too.
Fair. What typically happens though with this, and it happened with Jason, and it's happened with you as well, and it's just kind of the structure of it, because it's not me grabbing, and I know you're a YouTuber as well, but typically it's not aimed at my fellow YouTubers, so it's just whatever time happens to fit in life is when we have to do the stream, and obviously it'll always sit there for use later. If anybody wasn't able to catch the stream immediately, they're able to catch it later, and I'm fine with that, simply because this is more for people to get to know you, me to get to know you. If they're not here live in the beginning, that's perfectly fine. It'll be there on the channel later. This is mainly, you broke that code, you earned this time, you earned the time to be here, talk about whatever you want, do whatever you want, as long as it's not set my phone on fire, burn my house down, or spill my thermos of tea.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, I completely missed somehow that a live stream was part of the reward. I was just focusing, hey, there's something to solve. So I jumped on there.
For every code that's solved, you get the live stream, you get the video request, and you get the video that's made about you breaking the code, which typically means that I don't want my codes to be easy, because if my codes are broken every week, like what happened when you broke it, then I literally have to stop whatever my scheduled upload was and go, okay, now my scheduled uploads are going to be 3 videos about this code. But again, as I've said before, and as I've said many times, nobody's even caught wind of the first code yet. Or not first, the third code.
You didn't include it in the intro.
No, it is not. I've actually gotten a few messages of people saying, hey, I found your code. It's right under your title. I'm like, that was the first one. That was the first. And they're like, oh, are you going to keep all your codes in there, clogging it up? Like, no, the second code is no longer in videos. The first code stays in there because it's legitimately part of my title. But the second code very much was kind of obnoxiously pasted in because I figured it was hidden well enough there. I was obviously wrong. You proved me wrong on that, and you proved me wrong very quickly.
Well, in all honesty, I actually make cipher codes, which I've already told you about, stuff like that, like rotating ciphers, pretty simplistic stuff to me. So I actually thought that the code that was shown at the end of that video in the credits was the first part of the code, and that it would reference back to that frame. Because I figured it was so short. I was like working it backwards in my head. So I thought that was so short that it would be a guaranteed thing that almost everyone would miss that.
Yeah, it turns out that I actually got messages about the hidden frame from the first video that came out within 24 hours.
Yeah. That's cool. So I actually started deciphering the first one as if it was the code, which, because you had it's ultimately a cipher like tied to another rotating cipher.
Yeah.
You could break it just how it is.
Yeah, you didn't necessarily need the hidden frame to break it.
Right. So I plugged the characters into that and started, and I made an Excel little program that that does it pretty well. But I ended up seeing the comment on there that the frame was the first third of the code, you said.
Yes.
So I decided not to go straight for the end then, and I started there again.
Yeah, and the first and that one was just mainly pointing to the, hey, here's a little scavenger hunt puzzle to do. Once you go to that puzzle, it directs you directly to the cipher. Right. The rest of it's pretty easy after that point, really.
But I did really appreciate that red herring going to the second one of your videos. That was kind of clever.
Yeah, because the second one that funny story about that. Back when I was working at my other job before obviously everything went down with that, I would have an earphone in and I would just listen to YouTube on autoplay, and it helped with my anxiety and depression and all that fun stuff. So it was very useful. Well, it autoplayed onto Holy Kool-Aid's mirror of that, and like I actually threw down my cleaning devices. Like I threw them on the ground because that video actually pissed me off because of the implications of it.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I was like, nope, that's the first thing I'm doing when I'm going home. I'm mirroring that video because that's a message that needs to get out. But that conveniently meant that I was able to construct something post hoc because I did that. Because it definitely wasn't the intention when that happened. It just happened to be very convenient that all the puzzle pieces were in place for me to build that around there. It was perfect that Keith was the 100th subscriber, that he had exactly two videos on his channel, that my second video just happened to not be one that I had made. Like, all of that was actually coincidence. I just capitalized on the coincidence.
I think you should have taken this one. You would have been a mastermind. No one would have been able to prove you wrong.
No, that was... my thing is that I play a lot of card games, so thinking about what resources I currently have available versus thinking about what I might be able to do later on down the road, I'm very much the type of person that thinks about the things that are just on the field at the moment. So whenever something like that is available, it's pretty quick for me to just go, oh yeah, no, I can just totally use all these things real quick, which actually helped as well, because when you asked me to do the Bible code video, I'm like, it's literally how I constructed my code, was just doing everything post hoc with nothing being intentional, which is exactly how codes are extracted from literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a pretty good video. I liked the Moby Dick illustration was fantastic.
Yeah, I figured that I would, and I don't know how many people actually caught it as it was going, that the assassination ones weren't from the Bible up until I was like, oh shit, no, that's Moby Dick. Now you can just pull this out of any book.
Yeah, that one I've actually heard. People have. I don't remember what other books people have done it with, but it's random noise. You're extracting meaning with arbitrary methods. You can find whatever you want.
Somebody on Reddit actually asked me to do a follow-up video on there where I deconstruct how the Torah in specific is decoded. Because the way that the Torah is decoded is actually really sneaky. So you know how Old Hebrew doesn't have vowels, right?
Okay.
So whenever you sandwich all of the words together into the giant clusterfuck of letters, and you select, say, 3 letters out of there, so you select C-N-T. Well, you can get couldn't out of that. You can get can't out of that. But you could also get whatever word you can insert vowels into, because vowels aren't originally part of that language. You can actually construct about 10 words from just those 3 letters there, because they're missing vowels, and you can plug in whichever ones you want. So you can actually construct whatever message you want out of there because the vowels are missing, and you can plug them in yourself.
Confirmation.
And create whatever word you want out of it. And it's almost a little insidious.
Yeah, that's confirmation bias's best friend there. Just making whatever you want to justify it. Yeah. And
Bud Askins said he thinks that I'm one of the few YouTubers that goes through the comment section. Yes, I actually hit the when I wake up, I hit the comments button on my YouTube channel, which gives me the comments of every video that I've ever made, and I just scroll down and find the ones that I haven't responded to yet. And I either if I like the comment, I'll give it a like and give it a heart. If it's something that I feel like I need to respond to, or I have the time to respond to, then I'll go ahead and respond to as many as I can while I'm there. I'm rapidly approaching the point where that's not going to be feasible, because it takes me a good half hour each time I do it to go through and respond, especially if somebody has a more long-winded comment that requires a more long-winded response. So it's getting more difficult, but I'm still in the early stages where I can respond to all of my comments. So when I get to the point where I can't, I'll probably make an announcement on my channel. Hey, I'm at the point now where I try to respond, but I cannot respond to everything. But currently I do, just because I'm able to.
Right. Seems along the lines of Godless Cranium. He seems to strive to respond to as much as he can, but I'm sure he got quickly overwhelmed with the amount of volume.
Oh yeah, Telltale Atheist actually sent out a sort of help me message recently, because he's getting to the point where he can't respond, because he's getting like 1,000 messages a day between Facebook, Discord, his YouTube comment section. Like he's no longer able to keep up. He's strictly no longer able to keep up. And Telltale Atheist is a one-man show, just like me. I'm a one-man show. I can completely empathize. It's hard for me to take care of mine, and I have 1/40th or 1/50th of his audience. Like, I don't even know how the hell he's been doing it, and he has several times more people than I do. Right. In Cosmic Springs, I don't know if she's helping him now. I'm uncertain. It's not something that I've actually asked about. I did meet his sister at Faithless Forum, but I did not get a chance to ask about that because it wasn't something that came up in conversation yet. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of relatively out of touch on the broader goings on the community on that side with the Faithless Forum and everything. I actually hang out quite a lot more on the theist side of things because I'm kind of really against the idea of explicitly hanging out with people you agree with on a specific topic.
Oh, definitely.
To me, that's got some pretty bad inherent danger. So I'm actually subscribed to a lot more theistic channels than I am atheistic channels, and that's primarily where I have any conversation.
Though I have been able to see your comments on a lot of them. Like I know, I think Classical Theist is one I've seen your comments on a lot as well.
Yeah, I wish I'd get more back from him. But.
I don't want to badmouth anybody on my channel, but I will say that he has probably the most simplistic and least satisfactory arguments of some of the theists that I've talked to. But I think that's also his idea of God is what the infinitely simple God think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that
rather than God being complex, he's infinitely simple. Part of a classical theism, which is a complex thing, which admittedly most people don't know a lot about, including theists.
Oh yeah, it's true. Like most of your theists now are either fundamentalists or ex-fundamentalists, but their background is in fundamentalism because that's how they were raised, and so their apologetics all come from there, and it makes it a whole lot easier to deal with them because I feel like they're much weaker apologetics as a result of coming from, like Bible literalism and stuff like that. It's very easy to refute things like that, and it saddens me that a lot of theists do hold to that because for us to have better conversations with theists, they have to have better conversations to bring to the table. Which, to be fair, kind of leads me into the topic I wanted to point in. What do you think is the worst argument an atheist can posit towards a theist for the non-existence of God?
That's kind of a difficult one to answer because most atheist things are responses to theist things.
Yes.
And like outright, the problem of evil is something that's relatively useless to disprove a God. Basically, at best, disproves an omnibenevolent God.
Yes.
One that's perfectly good, which fails, I think, on its own merits.
And I don't think apologists really argue for the omnibenevolent God in that sense now anyway. I think they... a lot of times I hear the argument for a God that is always interested in the greater good, but the greater good sometimes comes with positive necessary evil.
Right. Yeah, I think the omni traits are generally only put forth by those who don't understand the problems that lie within them.
Yeah.
So like the attacks like the omnipotence paradox, that one...
That's what I would say is the weakest one, the God can't create a stone, he can't lift type of argument.
Yeah, I think it lies in the nature of logic, because a common theistic argument is that logic exists outside of the human mind. Like the laws of logic, law of identity.
I was about to say you could take the Matt Slick approach. Can you attest for the laws of logic?
Exactly. I was just going to say Max Colby, Red Pill Religion, that's one of the things he was ranting on about was to account for the laws of logic. And it's really, as I think King Crocoduck said, it's a convention of human thought. They're called the laws of thought, or principles of thought, or something like that. And they only really apply to closed systems of reasoning like mathematics that we use to describe the world.
Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of the problem, though, is that especially with the laws of logic, there are some people that describe that, for instance, the law of excluded middle is not necessary. There's some schools of thought that do think that the law of excluded middle. Sorry, that's not a topic we bring up here.
Midgephobic.
But Yeah, excluded middle is one of the laws of logic that there are some schools of thought that simply don't ascribe to. And not to mention, I think there's another school of thought Steve McRae was talking about where the laws of logic need not apply at all because absurd, like things like a square circle exist in some schools of thought. Not that that's something that works within the laws of logic, but there are other schools of thought that don't even give a crap about the laws of logic to begin with. Because like with the law of gravity, or like with any scientific law, they're not prescriptive, they're descriptive. They describe something after the fact that is already there and thus are fallible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes Matt Slick's argument really awful, because whenever he says, can you attest to the laws of logic, it's like the laws are descriptive. They're descriptive of something that we notice, they're descriptive of something that we witness, but they're not prescriptive. They're not there beforehand. Because I think one of his arguments is saying that, who wrote them? I'm like, that's just as bad as somebody saying who wrote the DNA code. It's a horrible argument.
Yeah. See, like logic basically pertains to the descriptions, the interrelationships of the descriptions we form and the labels that we use, rather than being a direct description of reality. Like for a logical syllogism, when you establish the premises in a deductive syllogism, deductive reasoning, you've already implicitly determined what the conclusion is because it's derived explicitly from those premises.
Yes. And sometimes you can have premises that are both correct but don't logically follow to the conclusion.
Mm-hmm. And yet analogously apply that conclusion to reality, so it still would need some evidentiary support, either overwhelmingly in the premises or otherwise in the conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's where, like, you get the moralistic argument where, premise one, objective morals exist. Premise two, if objective morals exist, God exists. Therefore, God exists type of arguments. I think that those arguments are just inherently bad sometimes, because you can have two premises that I could grant them, and even granting them sometimes it won't even mean that the ending actually logically follows. It's not always bad argumentation, but I think in a lot of cases, especially with the moral argument, it is bad argumentation in that case.
Right. I see there's a message in the chat that's pretty good.
Sure.
From Bud Eskins.
Atheists need to dumb down encounters and stop trying to sound smart with all their fancy terminology. I agree. I 100% agree. We're not, but see, the thing is with me and Chaosism, I don't think we're necessarily trying to sound smart. It's that, for instance, to have two, what is a smaller word for it?
We're understanding each other, so we can continue the conversation that way.
Yeah. It's not like, for instance, William Lane Craig. William Lane Craig, in an effort to win a debate, will end up using stronger and larger words in order to either convince his audience or to just dumbfound the person he's playing against. For instance, against Lawrence Krauss, he used this exact phrase, and it baffles me to this day. He said, "Are you trying to redescribe atheism as some type of atheism?" Like, yes, that is what the original word is, sir. Theism. But by saying it in that way, you convince the audience that you know more than your opponent about what you're talking about. Even though that exact phrase literally proves that you're just trying to throw out, I don't like using the term word salad sometimes, but I think that phrase is in fact word salad. But when we're having a conversation about logic, a logical syllogism is the actual term for what we're describing, and I can't think of another term for what that is. I know that I've tried to use if I know that somebody doesn't know what the Socratic method is, I'll call it a logic funnel, because I think that's literally what it is. It's using logic to give somebody a funnel to go down until they hit the end with yes or no questions. But I don't like calling it a logic funnel, because if you Google logic funnel, you don't get anything for it. And I see 2 chaosisms now, and I'm terrified. I see swords.
Yep. Okay, so I have my phone on because my computer is not cooperating right there. Hear me okay?
To be fair, Bud, you have heard multiple people on Star Trek use technobabble, which I think is horrible for sci-fi. But that's not to say that it's not useful in certain situations, especially when certain technologies don't exist yet. So technobabble is the only way to really give them any type of descriptions.
Yeah.
So we're swapping over to the phone now since it wasn't working otherwise.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
That happens.
About that comment, like I actually have, I comment on Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort and channels like that a lot. And yeah, I definitely don't use any kind of complex thing. I basically use a Socratic method, which is just more or less asking questions.
Yeah, I think the Socratic method is basically the easiest way to describe it is people doing what Anthony Mangdabasco does now before Anthony Mangdabasco existed. Because it's really just asking questions. Also, Suris, where did you go? Let me see if I can fix that. There we are. I should probably fix it now. Also, apparently we're getting a little bit of feedback from your end. I don't know if that's because it's coming through phone speakers as well as through my stuff. I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to hear it. Not quite as badly now, though.
You hear it right
now? Let's see. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. My audience is hearing two of me, and that's very unfortunate for them because my voice is grating and horrible. Jonathan Edwards says, religion is poop. Logic. It's actually one of the things that my next video is going to be on different argumentation methods. So maybe I'll make some enemies that way through my channel. I hope not. The most enemies that I've made so far through a video has been on my my video about urine therapy.
I could hear a little bit of that feedback, I think.
Let's see if the feedback is still doing its thing. Everybody there is saying that the audio is much better now. Okay, let's try again. No, it doesn't sound as bad now.
Okay, well that's a good thing. Oh.
Keep on keeping on with the age. Like, what?
That's creepy. So apparently somebody messaged Pam on WoW saying, keep on keeping on, little mage. You're going to make a difference.
No, he said you're going to be the difference.
You're going to be the difference?
Yeah.
That's...
I'm just like, I replied to him, I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't know how I would feel about that.
Somebody's apparently watching me, knowing that I'm a mage.
I mean, they can use /who and find you.
Yeah, but the fact that he knew where I was at.
That's fair. Apparently, they're saying that the echo is still there. Saying, "Oh, it's the fan." Let me see if I can't fix that.
It's
okay.
the fan.
Let us see if maybe I can remedy some of this. There we go. That should possibly be fixing some of that feedback, whatever feedback was being heard.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Love me, love me. If I could pronounce that, then I would say his name, but I can't, and I don't want to make a fool of myself. Also, Chrismer says that Nintendo still sucks, by the way. You know what? We're going to have... I'm just going to have to get you on the Non Sequitur show to talk with me about that. Something. I'll ask Kyle. I'll see if we can't make that happen.
Mr. Logic wants to see your cat.
Whenever they decide that they wish to be over here. They've been very lazy since the AC's been broken and not participating as often simply because our bodies are very warm and being near our bodies is not something they want to do. But if any of them start running around, I'll definitely grab them and pop them up. Though for the time being, they will not be able to see the cat that is not here. I think they're all hanging out with Pam in the room. We've got a window AC unit they gave us temporarily in there. So I think all the cats are huddled up in there because it actually feels nice in there. It feels horrible out here. Yeah, she works from home, so of course she's able to get the AC and everything in there because realistically, she needs it.
Yeah.
Yup. Warm bodies, find them, pump them up. Prismer, I'm not as good as debating as the Godless Iowan, so that, and I really don't think that. I just think Nintendo would be better dropping consoles instead and just being a game developer. I really disagree. I honestly think that having a third option that is not simply trying to fight as a powerhouse is important. Because let's be honest, for me, I have a gaming PC. I don't have a reason to have an Xbox One or a PS4. There's really not that many exclusive games on them that I can't already get on my PC. The PC itself is strong enough to run those games as well as the Xbox One and PS4 can. So I don't have any reason to get them, but I do have a reason to get a Nintendo console. So as somebody who's been almost a lifelong PC gamer, it's almost always been PC, Nintendo, and if I have the extra money, I'll grab the other consoles for that generation, or the last generation usually is what happens. Like my PS3 is over there. We've got an Xbox One and Xbox 360 in the other room, but those are Pam's. Those aren't mine. But again, as a PC gamer, I don't have as much of a use for those consoles, all things considered. I know that the topic at hand is definitely not exactly what Chaosism signed up for.
That's all right. I don't think I signed up for a particular topic. I haven't played video games in quite a long time. Same thing that kind of impedes me from doing anything with my channel.
Yeah, just general life.
Yeah, sort of. And my trailer video, which is the last video I made, I described in the beginning, I kind of nebulously described it as volunteer work, which is pretty much literally everything I do if I'm not working or sleeping. I call bingo at a nursing home and keep up with people who don't have families and whatnot. It's a lot of people.
I mean, let's be honest. If we had a choice between you doing that and working on your channel, honestly, I think providing for society might be a little better between the two.
Yeah.
Not saying that your channel's bad. I've actually liked what I've seen on your channel a lot. But if you have to take the choice between helping old people and making a video for YouTube, I think one of those is arguably better.
Well, Cosmological just asked which video I would recommend someone new. It's hard for me to say because they kind of come from different angles. The one that's gotten the overwhelming positive response is the fine-tuning of the universe. The Cosmic Lottery and the fine-tuning of the universe, which is kind of an analysis of that argument. My trailer video is kind of long and drawn out a little bit, I suppose, but I tend to employ a lot of psychology in my videos as much as I can because that's my favorite topic, and I use philosophy kind of to deconstruct things, but I mean, nothing is actually atheistic of my videos, even though I've had to clarify that several times to people on there. Just because I say Ray Comfort's argument is wrong, here's how, and then people say, why don't you believe in God? Is that why? I'm like, that has nothing to do with it.
I actually had a similar conversation. For anybody who's familiar with the apologist S.J. Thomason, or Lead1225 on Twitter, we actually had a conversation, and she said that she thinks young Earth creationism does damage, but we think it does damage for different reasons. I think young Earth creationism hurts because we end up having a lot of I think 25% of the medical field is based on the theory of evolution now because of how many things we have to extract from other animals. So how genetically compatible we are with those animals is very important, and a lot of that research is predicated on the theory of evolution. And the theory of evolution doesn't fly in young Earth creationism. So I think that there's a lot of fields that are hurt, especially cosmology is hurt a lot, or astronomy. Both of them are hurt by young Earth creationism in every way, shape, and form. So for me, I think they do damage. I think young Earth creationism does damage that way. But S.J. Thomason says that she thinks young Earth creationism does damage because if somebody is brought up with young Earth creationism, they are that much more likely to reject God because of how silly the ideas are. I'm like, you and I have very different goals. You and I have very different ideas of the word harmful. But Tyler, I believe, asked me if I could explain strategic design. I do not have a working understanding of strategic design past that instead of in typical design, you design something so that the solution is not super noticeable. So if you have a problem come up and you work on a solution, ideally the solution should not impede the other things that are already present in the mechanism. And it's just fixing things kind of here in the now. Whereas strategic design is a little different. Strategic design is about fixing a problem with the ideas of what that mechanism is going to be doing in the future involved. So for instance, strategic design for business would be getting something fixed up and ready now, because your business model is going to require that to be fixed and ready 5 years in the future. It's just more forward thinking. That's probably about the extent that I know about it. And even that, I could actually be very wrong. I don't know if you actually know a decent bit about that, Chaosism. Maybe you could expand on that.
No, I don't know enough to really confidently say anything about that.
Fair enough. And past what I just gave, that's all I know about it. It's something that I might end up looking up, and if it's within the ideas of a video that I might be doing, then I might end up doing a video where it's either included or is the focus of the video. But past what I gave, I don't know a lot about it now. So we've got cosmological God doesn't not exist. That's a lot of negatives. Let's not go with that many negatives. God yesn't exists.
That's a good word.
That's what Pam has been using lately.
I guess, yeah, my channel started with a couple of videos, video responses to Kent Hovind, which is low-hanging fruit, but I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Let's be honest, that are low-hanging fruit, but we still talk about them.
Yeah, yeah. But I started that one because obviously simple basics of evolution can be explained that way to illustrate what he's saying is kind of nonsensical and obviously misrepresentational.
Yeah.
So I started that basically as a prod from King Crocoduck when he made that. I don't know if you're familiar with it. He has a playlist. He started an initiative called Help Hovind Understand Science.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of people made videos responding to him at that point. So between that and with my friend, I ended up doing that, not necessarily to say, here's how you're wrong, but to attract those critics to say why I was wrong. And that's really what I want to see in my videos, is people pointing out what's wrong with them rather than agreeing with them. It's actually, on the videos I do have a lot of positive response. You'll see comments of me replying, go, well, if your feet were held to the fire, what would you say was wrong? One thing. And usually don't get any response. But to me, that's more valuable. And that's why I'm doing it in the first place.
I actually saw my my S.J. Thompson video when that was posted to the Great Debate community. I didn't even post it there. Somebody else grabbed it and posted it there and was like, somebody actually responded to her. Awesome. And someone else pointed out that they thought that the responses were stupid and they should quit while they were ahead. They didn't say if it was either me or SJ who should quit while they were ahead, just that somebody should. And when clarification was asked, they said, it just sounds like idiots arguing with idiots, and they didn't go further. I'm like, well, I can understand that, you know, some of her questions might not have been directly asked and have anything to do with atheism, but the questions were still there and were still answered. And if you don't like my answers, fine. I'm fine with that. That opens up a discussion. But I really don't like it when somebody says, I have a problem with this, and when you ask them for what the problem is, they simply can't give you the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. It's
very weird. Tyler Raymond said the exact question was, what would you say if intelligent design was replaced with strategic design? I would be fine with that, except that that kind of goes with the omnigods. So you can have, I think in the idea of intelligent design, strategic design is kind of implied already, in that it's forward thinking. At least the way that I hear most apologists use it. It seems like the forward-thinking nature of it is already implied within the argument. So replacing it with just strategic design removes some of the fat from the argument, but I think the argument still ultimately stays the same.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it is implied in there. There's a reason this works not optimally because of some future goal.
Yeah.
It's like this on purpose, unless God really did screw up.
Cosmological says we'll have Suris, me, Rev Jr., and Godless Cranium answering those questions. I wasn't aware that Godless Cranium was doing one. I mean, I figured he would, but I know that I saw Rev's response in Discord earlier today. But yeah, I will say this. S.J. Thompson has actually been very, what's the word? She has not been disingenuous with that video. Out of all the things that I've seen her do on Twitter, when it comes to that video, at least, she's actually been very cordial, and it's been kind of nice. Even if I don't think that her methods of arguing are really good, especially after the conversation we had earlier today, where like one of her questions is about the Christian martyrs, and my answer in both cases, both in the live debate and on my video, are, okay, cool, well, what about Islamic martyrs? And she's like, well, that doesn't say anything about the Christian martyrs. Like, yeah, it does. If your argument works for Christianity and Islam, you now have to answer for Islam. But if I apply the same standard to both of them and don't accept either of them with that standard, I think I'm the one being fair here. I think it's special pleading to accept the standard for Christianity but not accept it for something like Islam. It sounds very weird to me to say that, yeah, there are martyrs in Christianity, that makes it valid. There are martyrs for Buddhism. There are martyrs for Hinduism. I'm sure there are Jainist martyrs, as weird as that would be.
Yeah.
Apology apparently also made a great video about martyrs, and we will. I'll have to actually see that. I don't think I've seen that video yet, and if I have forgotten it because my memory is awful, honestly. But with that said, so Chaosism, you said that for you, the problem of evil would probably be the worst argument an atheist could posit to a theist, as far as a argument for the non-existence of God.
It's kind of a hard thing to classify as the worst argument because it's more of a rebuttal to a specific thing. But I see that given like outright as its own argument, and it has some merits. But there's so many responses to it. People have already kind of, I mean, even if it's not satisfactory to the atheist, if Christians have already kind of twisted their heads around solutions and accepted these as the way it is, like the free will defense, you just have to go on arguing something else.
Yeah.
Besides that.
Although I think that the free will defense only works for human evils. It doesn't work for natural evils.
Well, see, that's when you get into people saying the fall of man. So all that natural evil is the result of that initial choice. People argue that all the time.
Fair.
Like there'd be no earthquakes or hurricanes if if man didn't sin with his own free will in the beginning.
I mean, I could understand that. Although there was a conversation I had with a theist. He was a Christian. I think this was maybe a month and a half ago, something like that. But he, for clarification, there's a few debate groups in Kick, and I frequent those debate groups because back before my channel had any traction, that was where I did my advertising. That was where I got other people's responses, because I typically wouldn't go into like, oh, this is an atheist chat room. I typically wouldn't do that because echo chambers are inherently harmful. If you say a bad idea and they bounce it back to you with nodding heads, your bad idea is still a bad idea. And there's no way to know if the idea was really bad or not. But there are debate chats where you can talk to theists in real time and get immediate responses on the things that you're saying. And one of the theists that I talked to, I asked him, do you think that you should be punished for the sins of your father? Say your father murdered somebody, should you go to jail for it? And he said, no. I'm like, okay, what about your grandfather? Say your grandfather stole from somebody, should you go to jail for it? He said, no, of course not. I'm like, cool. Let's say that you had an ancestor 150 years ago who owned slaves. Should you be in trouble for essentially human trafficking? And he said, no. And what the hell is your point? I was like, cool. So we agree. So what do you think about original sin? Do you think we should be punished for the sins of our forefathers if our forefather was Adam? And he's like, that's different. Like, no, it's not. How is it different? Explain how it's different. If you agreed to me up to this point, where's the disagreement here?
Yeah, but and of course there's ways to to justify that kind of thing as being different. Like it's
It's a sin against God instead of a sin against man.
It's more of like a separation where you have to find your way back to God. Like it's up to you to bridge that gap, kind of thing. It's you can make any kind of ad hoc explanation to explain just about anything and still fit within a general framework.
No, it's true. You can do that, and I think I think when it comes to the sins of our forefathers argument, I think it was Steve McRae who I talked to, and he said that his version of it was a sin against God is different than a sin against man. And I pointed out, okay, well, I used murder as one of mine, and in the Ten Commandments, breaking a Ten Commandment is a sin against God, and murder was one of my examples, so I've already kind of covered that. And he just kind of like shook his head for a second. He's like, "Oh, I have to think about that." But I hadn't even considered the sin against God thing, and I was like, "Well, it's kind of lucky that I had already posited murder in there." I should have said if your mother boiled a goat in its mother's milk like 3 years ago, should you go to jail for it? Because that would have caused some head scratches.
Right.
So Bud Askin says that Matt Dillahunty uses this argument. Better ask him if he can use it too. I don't think there's a monopoly on particular arguments, though. If I did have an opportunity to talk to Matt Dillahunty, I'd love to. Even if it is jokingly asking, "Hey, can I use this argument?" I definitely would enjoy talking to him.
Yeah. So the explanations I give, that's kind of my approach. Is I think the very first comment I left on your channel was like a devil's advocate kind of thing. That's generally what I do. Mm-hmm. First thing I try to do is think of a rationale.
I can't even remember what it was for or which video it was on.
I think the triangle, God is a triangle or something.
Oh, like I think, wasn't our conversation where you had said, well, what about time? Something like that? I think that was yours, or was that somebody else's?
I think that was someone else's, but it's kind of irrelevant because there wasn't too much to it. It's just...
Yeah, I know that I actually do really like the devil's advocate responses, and I especially like whenever I get cosmology wrong and somebody points that I'm incorrect in there, because cosmology is possibly my worst subject out of any possible subject I could use. So anytime that I'm having to talk about something and cosmology is involved, that is my Achilles heel. If anybody wants to know how to beat me in a debate, go to cosmology and I will flunk it. I have consistently flunked it. I have conflated dark matter with dark energy. I have gotten the cosmic inflation of the universe wrong now. As it turns out, when asked for clarification, SJ did in fact mean universal expansion, not universal inflation. So luckily, my argument still stands, but I am still wrong.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. And like I've said in a bunch of places, I'm not an expert in any of the things I will ever talk about. I consider myself to have a grasp on some of them, and I can research and find stuff out, but I'll never say this is the way it is. I'm always up to any kind of conversation, especially with people that actually know a lot better than I do.
Oh yeah. Like I'm very much a layman when it comes to most of the topics that are on my channel. Most of the time, if I'm talking about something on my channel, I researched it before I made the video. But in a lot of cases, I might not have known about that subject, say, a week ago. I didn't even know urine therapy was a thing until it appeared on the Non Sequitur show and grossed me out.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I get the arguments on my channel. That video has the most hate comments on it now.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Did you consider a pun response to be a hate comment?
I don't consider a pun response to be a hate comment. I'm fine with those.
I know that's borderline sometimes.
No, puns are fine with me. I'm an Undertale fan. I can handle puns. But no, one of the comments on there was, "Who the hell paid you to make this video?" I wish somebody paid me to make this video. That would have been wonderful. I would be able to afford better food. Another one of them, and I actually have it. I can bring it up. I don't know if you've seen the any of the hate comments that were on there, but I saved one of them because it was just too good not to. So let me pull that up real quick, because...
I don't know, are your videos monetized?
They are not yet, because I have not hit 4,000 hours of watch time.
Okay. I was going to say, that you'd have the perfect response to someone who says, "Who paid you for this?" And you go, "You just helped."
Thank you for the view. You're one of the people who just paid for this. No, that would be awesome, but unfortunately, I am not monetized yet. Otherwise, people would be able to just super chat me, "Hey, Suris, you're fat," and I wouldn't mind that, because if you want to pay $2 to tell me I'm fat, cool. I am obese as fuck. But let me go share screen. This was the comment that I had to save. Urine therapy or Shivambu works. This video is sponsored by Big Pharma, who buys urine from portable toilet companies. Seriously, look for yourself. It's a panacea for healing.
Yeah. All caps, of course.
Yep.
Sometimes I think those are more likely to be someone trolling.
You know, I would say that, except that I actually found a few urine therapy videos and commented on them, so I think that during my research I may have planted the seeds for somebody to go find my channel and see that video and make those responses. So I'd love to give the benefit of the doubt there, but I don't think that's the case there. Don't make fun of me and my Big Macs. I know I'm fat, but Big Macs are life. I'm actually not a fan of Big Macs. I used to be a manager at McDonald's a long time ago. I don't want to do that again, and I don't like the smell of Big Macs. I just don't like that place anymore. Diogenes the dog says, it's people who seal urine therapy books and shit calling you a NASA shill. Yeah, I actually did have pictures of 2 urine therapy books in that video. They exist. It's just weird. Also, by the way, Chaosism, do you use Discord by chance?
I haven't. I think I've used it a couple of times for random things, but not very much at all.
Fair enough. I know that.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Say that again?
I said you go ahead.
Oh, I've been invited to a number of Discord servers, but I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah, it eats up a lot of time, especially whenever you feel your phone vibrating and you look at it and you're like, oh, 150 Discord notifications. That's neat.
Yeah, it's also considering that I'm not even home every night.
Fair enough.
It's a ridiculous amount of time I spend doing that.
Yeah, I think it's I would say that it's a miracle that we were able to actually get the time to do this time. But the last time that I said something like that, God intervened and took away your internet and screwed up your ability to be here.
Well, it screwed up your application too, didn't it?
Yeah, it wouldn't let me add you to the call on either Hangouts on my phone or Hangouts on my computer. Like everything, as far as that Hangout was just fudged.
And see, that was such an asshole move from God. That's why I don't think he exists.
Yes, remember, atheists are atheists because they're angry at God. And that's one of the list of most terrible theist arguments you'll ever hear, which we hear it all the time still.
That's one of my most favorite, because they'll accuse you, you're atheist, you like your pornography and your drugs and your alcohol.
Y'all just want to sin.
Exactly, and I could reply saying my life is actually perfectly compatible with the Christian life, because I have actually been called by groups of people. I've been called a model Christian by people who didn't know I wasn't Christian. People assume I'm very religious because of what I do.
Yeah,
it's just automatic. I mean, I even volunteered. I called bingo at a Catholic place. And they actually through a couple questions just out of curiosity found out that I didn't believe, but even to them, I guess they thought I was doing enough good where I shouldn't have a problem and whatever.
As long as you're not participating in the butt sex, you can get to heaven. That kind of. Actually, I think they completely accept homosexuality now, don't they? The Catholic Church does.
I don't know.
I don't keep up with whatever the ins and outs of that says.
Which is kind of a bad way to phrase that.
The ins and outs of anal sex with chaosism. Hey, Chaosism and Suris, what are your thoughts on mesotheism?
None. I actually don't know what that is.
I can Google it real quick.
It sounds dangerous.
It sounds like a soup. Oh, mesotheism is the hatred of God. Is hating of all gods.
You can. It has no bearing on whether they exist or not, I suppose.
I don't think it's that useful. I find it incredibly hard to hate something that doesn't exist.
No, I'm saying people can. Yeah, I don't see the point of it, too. People hate movie villains all the time with a passion, or characters, or whatever.
True.
It's easy to do.
It is very easy to do, and I would say in regards to Yahweh specifically, I can hate some of the things that he has done within the Bible. It's one of those things like if somebody said, do you hate God? I would have to say if he hypothetically existed, and if hypothetically he was Yahweh and did the things that Yahweh is attested to do in the Bible, then I would probably, as a humanist, have no choice but to hate him. Like, I wouldn't have much of a choice otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody's asking me, do you hate God, just in the broadest sense, like, no, I don't believe he exists. He might exist, but in the off chance that he does, I don't know. And again, I don't think he exists. So, yeah, I find it very hard to hate him. Like, at least with the character in fiction, like say Voldemort and Harry Potter, you get to know this character over a lot of time. He's not just a paper-thin character like Yahweh is. Because I'll be honest, I think Yahweh is a very paper-thin character as far as literature is concerned.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, what is Yahweh? Yahweh is an idea in Judeo-Christian values, who does a bunch of things and kills a bunch of people, but ultimately, who is he? Like, you've got a bunch of descriptory terms that are super broad, but that character is really, really ill-defined. So as far as literature is concerned, I find it very hard to hate a character who is so ill-defined.
Right. And then when you say God in general, that could be, absolutely anything pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's very, what's the word for it? I think it was very arrogant that Yahweh was chosen as the name for that particular God, since it just translates into the word God. Same with Allah, it's just Arabic for God. Like, I think that's very arrogant, just discounting every other god of every other faith by calling yours just God. Because that's what's kind of happened here in the States. If you say God, people automatically think you mean Jesus, because most of the Christians here don't even know the word Yahweh. But they automatically think you mean Jesus when you could be meaning Odin. You could be meaning Krishna. You could be meaning anything, and they would just have to assume that you meant theirs.
Right.
Which I think is strange, but I also think it kind of smacks of the arrogance of the people who first purported that faith.
Mr. Lodge asked a question. What will you tell Yahweh if you die and it turned out he existed? I'm not sure what I could tell him. As we were just discussing, it's hard to really find what Yahweh would be exactly. I don't know what I would say or could say. If I don't believe, I don't believe. If I don't really have any control over what I believe.
Yeah.
And I doubt anything I could say would matter in the slightest.
Well, I think for me, see, it's very weird. It depends on what type of person he would be when you got to heaven. Because if he started out with the accusatory, why didn't you believe? Why didn't you do this? Obviously, you have to start by taking a back step. You wouldn't really have any choice but to. If a deity is sitting there yelling at you, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, really, what do you think you're going to be able to do? However, if it was in fact Yahweh, and I knew for a fact that I was going to hell and there's nothing I could do about it, I think a little bit of interrogation before I start burning for eternity would be in order. And to say, hey, did you actually do these things that you're purported to do in the Bible? Okay, why are you a moral monster? Like, if I know I'm going to burn in hell anyway, realistically, why not get your pot shots in? Like, if you have no choice either way. It's like if somebody has a gun aimed at your head and they say your prayers, I'm going to shoot you. What harm is there when you know that he's about to pull the trigger and flipping him the bird? Like, realistically, what are you going to do? You're going to die anyway. Same thing if you're about to go into hell. You know you're going there if you die and find out he exists. Why not go ahead and flip the bird?
Yeah, definitely can see where you're coming from there.
But if I think that there's a chance that I might try to reason with this God and say, hey, did you actually do these things in the Bible? Was there an actual reason why you did them? Was there another way? Like, have a conversation. If this person is a reasonable being, which I would hope they would be, if we're made in their image and we're reasonable beings, then he would have to be reasonable, unless the book was lying, and the Bible would never lie. No. Never. But if Yahweh was in fact a reasonable being, then having a conversation to say, okay, did this have to happen this way? Was there a reason that it was done? Was it done for the greater good? I think a conversation could be had there if they're a reasonable deity. Granted, according to the Bible, I have no reason to believe this is a reasonable deity in any way, shape, or form. But that's just me.
Yeah, not much more that could be gleaned from this rather than just aimless speculation.
Aimless speculation can be fun, though.
Can be. Goes off the rails pretty quick into nothingness and then into people going somewhere else.
Fair enough. Though I will say, for a good example of what might happen in this type of scenario, Dark Matter actually recently, like literally just put out a video on this exact subject of a Christian, a Muslim, and an atheist all dying and meeting God at the exact same time. And
I did
the
see that.
conversation that comes from there. So I think that would be a really good video to watch as far as that question is concerned. What would you tell Bigfoot if you met him? Wow, that's a good Chewbacca cosplay.
Why are you so blurry?
Why are you so blurry?
Yeah, all the pictures that are taken from him, it's not that the camera is out of focus or he's out of focus, is that Bigfoot is actually blurry.
He literally is blur incarnate.
Yes.
Like, you see him and you're just like, holy shit, is this where the Witness Protection Program got its ideas from? I can't even tell what you are. Mr. Logic says, if it was me, I would ask if he pre-planned every event in the world. If the answer is yes, I would tell him that you already pre-planned my eternity in hell, and then it's your fault.
Well, he already pre-planned you saying that then, and has already planned right along past that.
Yep.
So it's still rather meaningless, except for your own satisfaction.
Yeah. Again, that kind of goes with the whole, if you already know you're about to burn in hell, why not take the pot shots?
Yeah.
So, I will say that's one of the reasons why I think that one of the worst, like, absolute worst versions of Yahweh, and the most detestable versions of Yahweh, has to probably be the Reformed Calvinist version of Yahweh. Like, that version of God has to be one of the ones that I think is the most morally corrupt.
Right. And if I were Christian, I think I would be mostly inclined towards Calvinism just because of my views on free will. Mm-hmm. And how that would have to be compatible with things, because I mean, especially if you posit that God is omniscient and all that, or all-knowing, or whatever, then that kind of comes along with it. A lot of people will argue. Have you ever heard people bring up the analogy of when you watch the TV, you're watching the football game, and you rewind it and watch it again? I mean, you're aware of everything that's going on, but you're not controlling the players' actions. It's a really, really poor analogy, obviously, because
it is.
If you were actually omniscient, all the thoughts that crossed any player's mind at any given time would already be determined. And then a lot of people will object, saying that God doesn't make people do things or doesn't force you to act, but that isn't the problem either. It's the fact that an omniscient being knows future events, and that
so they're
those
all
things
predetermined.
They're knowable. That's all that matters, is that something can know them. They can be known, which means they must be the case. It doesn't matter if something possesses that knowledge, just that it's possible for something to.
Yeah, and it's very... I hate having the free will argument sometimes with theists, because they'll say that free will is the choice between heaven or hell. while also positing that the god is omniscient, not even understanding that the implications of an omniscient god literally means that you cannot have free will. If I know everything that you're going to do beyond the shadow of a doubt, everything you're going to do from now until the time you die, you don't have any choice but to deviate from that path. Like, you don't have that ability. You are predetermined to go through every single one of those actions, irregardless of outside stimuli. That will happen no matter what, which means that you automatically do not have free will because you are predetermined on a set path and you cannot deviate.
Right. Yeah, and from any perspective within the world, as a being within the world, you can't help but experience free will. It more describes that. I mean, it has to be defined anyway before you really go anywhere, because you could have the libertarian free will, or more like a legal free will, meaning something's not directly impeding your ability to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where the conversation kind of devolves sometimes. Mr. Logic asks if I'm currently wearing his sandals. Yeah, fun fact, everyone, actually, Mr. Logic was the one who designed the sandals that I put on Suris from time to time in the videos. He got tired of seeing my leg stumps and sent me some actual shoes for my character.
That is awesome. So, I have to ask.
Irregardless, he hates that word. I'm sorry, but the Webster Dictionary says it's okay. It's only the Oxford Dictionary that doesn't like that word.
Irregardless. It is a fun word to make people cringe. It's like using criteria and criterion wrong.
Or using the word moist.
But, anyway, I was going to ask, why do you have an avatar that has a hammer? Is there any specific reason? I'm sure you've answered that somewhere before, but
I'm fine answering it again. But the reason behind that is fun fact, a long time ago, like six-ish years ago, some absurd amount of years ago, I actually had a channel about Hearthstone, and I commissioned one of my Hearthstone buddies to make me an avatar that was me wearing Thrall's clothing from World of Warcraft, because my deck at the time, the deck that I still use today, was a shaman deck, and it's still my favorite class to play in the game. So that's actually Thrall's clothing from both Hearthstone and Warcraft, while using the Doomhammer, which is a weapon in both Hearthstone and Warcraft. It's also the same weapon that Ogrim uses in the Warcraft movie, if anybody's seen that train wreck. But the reason I chose the Avatar is because that was my favorite class to play. And at the time, me and my friend had tried to start a podcast. So he got dressed up in the clothes that the Rogue got, and he got a chibi avatar for that, and I got a chibi avatar for mine. The channel ended up falling through because, one, I was terrible at SEO, and I got tired of Hearthstone at the time, so I just let the channel drop off. And then on top of that, the person who was supposed to help me with the channel stopped showing up for podcast sessions. So that entire thing fell through as well. But when I started my channel, I realized that I still had all those assets from years ago. And I only had about 4 of them. I had one of my character pointing, one of my character angry, one of my character excited, and one of my character with just the standard default face. And I said, I can probably do something with this. So now I've taken that, and I figured, okay, I need to have my character do reactions and stuff like that. I need to have my character able to blink. I know that there's been people who've watched my older content, and my character was not able to blink or look around at the time. But eventually... Yep. Go ahead.
I was going to say, now some of the blinking is kind of out of control.
Now sometimes... Because
I was playing it to...
Now sometimes it's just blinking repeatedly. Now, I've done that one on purpose, though, because there have been people trying to discern Morse code from my blinking. So I'm just like, okay, bunch of blinks. Yeah,
definitely me. I was actually writing down dots and lines at first. And then went, okay, this is nothing. This is gibberish. But I was sticking that far.
But I eventually got to the point where there's, a bunch of different Suris avatars for every possible emotion that I could think of at the time. And I make more as I realize I need them. But yeah, that all evolved from those 4 avatars that he drew me, and I've customized them from there. But yeah, it was literally just convenience that I happened to have the avatar from a previous project, and I just adapted it for here. And luckily, since my character was based on a fictional character that already exists in another medium, I was able to appropriate the actual hammer.
We have to get you a real Warhammer. We have to get that thing commissioned.
Yes, if somebody wants to actually get a commissioned full-scale Warhammer, not the foam one that I use as a prop, that would be awesome. Though I will still have to continue using the foam prop, because in videos where I have to hit myself on the head with it, I am not using an actual Warhammer for that. I had to take medication the last time that I made a video where I was hitting myself in the head with a hammer. Like, afterwards, I had to take about, like, 1,500 milligrams of acetaminophen just to kill the headache. It hurt. That was not a fun experience.
Yeah. But if you made that an actual hammer, it'd have to be obviously hollow. There's no way that would ever work as a hammer.
No,
in reality.
Not. Definitely not.
I've got a Warhammer and a pole hammer in my collection. I've got lots of weapons, as you saw a small glimpse of.
Oh yeah, I saw that. You've also got the animations on your channel too.
Yeah, kind of blending with another thing I did. Historical European martial arts, HEMA, which is basically reconstruction of old manuscripts of the lost arts of swordplay and medieval combat. Mm-hmm. It's actually pretty rapidly growing sport with tournaments and everything, and I have some books that are copies or translations of the original. There's like a Fiore de Libre, which is where that animation came from. I have on Godless Cranium's channel.
Okay. You know, I actually learned a little bit of fencing and swordplay because I got into LARPing, but not the role play part of LARPing, just the boffer sparring. And so I actually had to learn swordplay because the weapons that we're using are not LARP tournament approved, so they actually do hurt. I mean, they're still foam, but the foam padding isn't thick enough to prevent it from being painful. So you learn after the first time the sword hits you never to let it happen again.
Yeah.
Why am I getting... My phone is finally turned on.
It's not on fire?
Not on fire, though I think I'm not using that charger anymore from this point forward. My phone feels like an oven. Like, it feels very hot, and it's been off.
That's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing at all. We're just going to set that over there, and hopefully everything is fine with that.
Potentially a battery problem there?
I don't think it's a battery problem. I think it's a problem with the charger itself. The charger was left in the car at one point, so the heat of the car, since it is summer here, have probably destroyed some circuitry in there, and I'm just expediting the process now.
Gotcha.
But so in the chat was Chrismer said that he thought it was just Mjolnir. Well, fun fact, the Doomhammer is based on Mjolnir because Thrall is a shaman who uses lightning. So the hammer is very much based off of Mjolnir. Thrall is very much based off of Thor. So you're half accurate there. Mr. Logic says, thoughts on Halo 5? I stopped caring about the Halo franchise after 3, so I have no thoughts on Halo 5. I have zero.
They're still making those? I'm so out of touch on any kind of games. I don't watch TV. I don't see movies. I don't do anything.
Yeah, 343 Studios owns it now. Bungie ended up having to give it up because of some legal mumbo-jumbo that Microsoft roped them into. So now a different studio makes it, and the quality has apparently, from what I've heard, not been quite as good. But I don't know if that's nostalgia talking or what, because I haven't been playing them. Chrismer says, thoughts on Mario Maker 2? I still haven't played Mario Maker 1. Because as much as I'm a fan of Mario games, I generally prefer the 3D ones to the 2D ones. So the idea of a level creator game for Mario didn't appeal to me. So, if they make it, awesome. If not, also awesome, I guess. It doesn't affect me. I'm not going to be buying it.
Wow. I prefer having a real combat. Well, I mean, not real, but like a fencing match or something like that. I don't ever get to do that. But
if you
much better to me than a video game.
If for me, I like video games because there are certain things you get out of them that you won't get out of fencing. But I do definitely enjoy fencing myself if I have the opportunity. Now, granted, my roommate, who used to be my fencing and sparring partner, is no longer here, so I no longer have that ability within the immediate 20-mile radius to do that anymore. But I would definitely like the opportunity to do so again because I'm sorry, it's fun. It is really fun, even if it's somewhat painful. Atheists that tout lack of convincing evidence as the main sticking point in belief of gods. Evidence is open to interpretation, so who do we look with the most accurate one, and why should we believe them? I don't know. Do you have a take on that one, Chaosism?
Trying
to think of something for it.
That's yeah. Many ways I can interpret a couple things in there. So
I mean, I know that evidence
sure.
Evidence is always based on what medium you're purporting evidence through. So, for instance, what evidence works in a crime scene might not necessarily be the same evidence that works in a scientific lab, even though sometimes those two things have to correlate together. Whereas, like evidence of magic, if somebody were to say that magic is always supernatural and never leaves the supernatural realm, well, me as somebody who's, not in the supernatural realm, I will never be able to get evidence of that by definition. But that effectively means that I have to operate as if it doesn't exist anyway, so it becomes a useless concept at that point.
Right.
I think that's the same thing as like the argument for solipsism, anything like that. Yeah, if you're a brain in the vat, but you have to act as if you're not, then the argument falls on its face anyway, because you have to effectively act as though that's not the case. So it doesn't matter if that is the case or not.
Right. That knowledge, even if it was absolutely true, has no actions that can be taken as a result. It's totally useless. And it's not like you can deny the experiences as false, because experiences are still real.
Yep.
I mean, it might not be real that you're getting stabbed in the liver if you don't actually have liver, but that experience is still being fed into your brain, and it's real enough.
Yeah. Like color in the strictest sense, shapes in the strictest sense don't really exist in the way that we think they do, but we have to act as though they do. Like that's
naive realism.
Yeah, you just kind of have to accept those things in order to be a functioning human being. So yeah, I think that even with evidence being open to interpretation, I don't think that means that there's necessarily a God that is any more or less accurate. I think the idea of Yahweh is automatically inaccurate because Yahweh is contingent on a lot of history, like the Exodus, for instance, is a very important part of the Pentateuch. But we know for a fact, at least as far as archaeologists have been able to discover so far, no Exodus ever happened. We've been able to determine, for the most part, that Moses didn't happen. And a lot of Yahweh is kind of contingent on those stories being true, not metaphor. So a God like Yahweh who requires history, I think that they would not be one that we would be able to ascribe to. But maybe if there's a God that does not require history, say a deistic God, there's more evidence for a deistic God because the deistic God, by definition, wouldn't have evidence. So
right. That doesn't functionally equivalent to atheism.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily automatically make me a deist, but it means that if I'm having a conversation with a deist, and it's the same thing that I told SJ today, if she wants to believe what she wants to believe, I can just say, yeah, sure, that's fine. You can believe that. I'm not asking why you believe. I'm asking why I should.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think it's an issue of which God has more or less evidence and which one should we put faith in at that point. I think that the one with the most evidence, as far as I can tell, would probably be a deistic God. And I'm still not a deist, so functionally it doesn't matter. Then he asks, would you consider the conversion experience that new believers have as a sort of gateway drug leading to more powerful experiences as they become indoctrinated in the beliefs?
That one could actually have a psychological basis in terms of investment. Have you ever heard of a YouTuber, I think Theremin Trees?
I have not, actually.
He's actually done a lot on this kind of topic. He covers it basically from a psychological perspective. The more someone accepts or invests in an idea or a group, the more likely they are to rationalize value in that group or it being worth their time.
Isn't that kind of like the whole you don't have a 9/11 truther that only believes in one conspiracy theory idea?
I'm not sure if it could be directly related to that. I don't know off the top of my head. But in any case, It's about the acceptance of people in the cults, and one of the studies cited has people who are actually who are selected to potentially join this book club, and then they're each given different trials in order to be accepted to it. Being one of them just has to be described like it's just this book club, and they go, okay, I'm in, and then they just hear them talking, and they're specifically talking nonsense in the experiment. It's total stupid exchange, and then those people who would just walk away and go, no, this is kind of dumb. But the people who had to sit there and listen to like lots of it or something like that before actually wouldn't find it so boring, and more likely would find the group worthwhile anyway because they invested so much time into it. But that's a very unnuanced take of it. There's other studies, and I recommend that YouTuber. Actually, he's incredibly thorough from everything I've seen.
I'll have to actually take a look at him too, then, because that sounds like it's pretty much right up my alley, honestly.
So I saw in the chat there was one person who asked. He was new to the channel and asked about learning the code breaker stuff.
I actually did not see where that one was. That's I see. Erica.
A little bit before Bionic Dance. Oh no, okay. Bionic Dance.
New to channel, don't understand the code breaker stuff. Where do I start learning vid? Okay, so Eric, a quick crash course. All of my videos, with a few exceptions, they have hidden codes in them. And if you happen to spot a code, it will typically lead you down a line of other codes that must be cracked, and it leads to a hidden message. And if you find that hidden message, then go ahead and shoot an email to me, say, hey, I found the hidden message. It's this. These are the steps I took to get there. At that point, you get, and should you not want any of these rewards, that's fine. I can pass those along to whoever else wants them at that point. But if you want, once you crack a code, you get a live hangout. Same that's happening right now with Chaosism. Talk about whatever topics you want. You also have a video that is made about you breaking the code, just kind of congratulating you. Hey, this was the code. This is the steps that were taken to crack it. This one was broken. Now the next code is going to go up on my channel. And then the last thing is you can request a video that you make for me. And I have that as one thing that like my patrons can do as well. But through the codes, you don't have to do anything like that. You can just say, hey, you cracked a code, whatever video topic, as long as it's within the confines of what my channel does, then go ahead and request that. I know Jason, who's broke the first code, requested that I do a going forward video about what plans there were for the channel. And then Chaosism requested that I do a video about the Bible code, the different codes that are hidden within the Torah and the Pentateuch and literature. So I've done those two videos. So whoever cracks the next code can request whatever code or whatever video they want, as long as it's within the within what I already do on my channel. Obviously, if somebody's like, hey, can you do a video about the top 10 Mario games? And no, I'm not going to do that, because that's not what my channel does already. But within the confines of what I do, crack a code, I will make a video in response to you asking that, a video for you cracking the code, and then a live hangout whenever you're free, and we can just hash things out, talk, get to know each other, get my channel to get to know you, congratulate you for cracking the code, which, by the way, anybody who hasn't already congratulated Chaosism, please do so, since he did crack that code within about a week and a half of it going up. So yeah, typically that's what the code is for. The code is just there to give people something to do on the channel outside of just watching the content, should they want to. And if somebody doesn't want to, then the codes are hidden in such a way that they don't impede the videos themselves. So you might not even notice that they're there for a long time.
So Eric, the one who asked that question, also asked if there was a vid or something like that, and I think that would be a good idea. Not necessarily as a public thing, because you don't want to broadcast that there's a code there. You want people to kind of figure it out on their own, I assume. To leave it unlisted and just link that to people who asked the question.
Okay.
And then you can reference a previous code as an example, and then you don't have to explain it every time you have, because you're going to keep getting new people who have no idea and will keep asking.
Yeah, and I think after a certain point, people might even forget that there are codes on the channel at all until one just happens to be broken.
Yeah. Okay, so I noticed a Silhouette is in the chat. He asked, I missed a lot of the stream, what was the second code? But before I answer that, one of the One of the things I really like seeing on YouTube in terms of videos is people's conversion stories or deconversion stories, because I like seeing what changed people's minds. And especially when I've never been religious or have any experience really in a religious community. I mean, the closest I've really been to that, I've been in countless churches, but that's because I've been to like countless funerals.
Mm.
But it's pretty much the closest. So, but anyway, Silhouette actually has a 4.4 part series on his deconversion story, which I actually thought was pretty interesting. He's looks brand new. There's like 5 subscribers. If anybody was interested in anything like that, I found that pretty interesting.
Plus, I actually do that. Let me see here. Silhouette, who's in the chat right now.
Yes.
Go, boom, go to channel. And that means, Silhouette, you have a 6th subscriber. I am now your 6th subscriber. So anybody who wants to see that as well, Chaosism recommended it. He cracked the code. So go do that thing.
Oh, I've got all kinds of power then, huh?
Limited power. You're not quite omnipotent. Not quite there. But says, would you consider Jesus' first street epistemology? I will get into that after Chaosism talks about the code, because I think that's what he's getting into next.
So offhand, I don't even remember what the solution to the code was that Silhouette asks.
It was, so there was a hidden frame. If you saw there was a hidden frame and a final frame. The final frame of the video had the actual code. The hidden frame within the video itself, you could pause the video at certain points and find that frame. You would find another code. Both of them were hidden in fonts. The first one, when you figured out what font it was and changed the font back to something that's legible like Arial, it would give you a hint. The second one would give you gibberish. And the hint led you to Keith O'Dare's channel, and it said that how many videos does he have? Find my video that has that same number. He only has 2 videos on his channel, because it said find my 100th subscriber. My 100th subscriber was Keith. Keith commented that he was the 100th subscriber, so a quick scavenger hunt through my video comment section would find that. Once you got all that and figured out, okay, go to my second video that I made had the cipher for the second code, so the second code could be decoded. But the second video on my channel was a red herring. It was actually a mirror upload of somebody else's, so somebody hit that video and said, oh crap, it's a dead end. There was nothing else they could do there. But the actual second video that I uploaded contained the cipher for that particular code in the description. And that'll let you figure out what the actual final code was. Granted, I put a typo in the code because I'm an idiot, but...
No, you put it in there on purpose. Red herring, just to test people. You're
another red herring. Yeah, and since Chaosism figured that one out so quickly, I made the third one even more complicated, which is why it probably has not been found yet.
Yeah. I actually would have had that code broken very quickly if I hadn't decided to not just pursue decrypting that at first, because since it was ultimately just a normal cipher at the end, I was already had most of it done, and then I went back and did it the proper way for fun.
Yeah, honestly, you're probably right though. I should have put it the other way around, where the hidden frame was the actual code and the final frame was the hint. Because then it would have been a little harder, and it would have been more. There would have been more incentive to crack the first code first.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think it's really awesome you're doing that. I love engaging people. I love testing people's minds with puzzles and stuff like that. Have you ever played like the online escape games where you have to do puzzles to get out of a room or something like that?
Yes.
I put my cousin through a real live version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago. It was a 50-set problem that took her 2 hours to get out, starting effectively chained to the doorway, to the register next to the a sliding door. And I mean, she could obviously get out if she wanted to, but it had everything like she had to find a shoestring underneath the mat to be able to reach it, and then a magnet stuck to the metal doorway where she had to tie that the shoestring to the magnet, toss it to get a coat hanger because you couldn't reach it otherwise, fold it into a hook, pull a guitar case forward, realize it's locked, also see a VCR kind of oddly placed. She used the hanger to push the eject button. The tape comes out with a key attached to it. She uses that to unlock the guitar case, finds Nerf pistols, Nerf darts. There's a Nerf pistol under the couch he can reach. He finds, notices that there's a big orange cardboard piece with a key on top of a door frame that she has to shoot down, and then she uses shoestring to pull it in. It's pretty crazy. And she did pretty good. She only needed a hint 2 times, but it was full of all kinds of crazy stuff.
See, based on that, it sounds like video game wise, you would enjoy the Metroid series.
Yeah, that could be like any kind of thing, but again, my restriction is time.
Yeah, understandable.
But pretty cool. Had like yeah. I'll go one more thing real quick, just to show the depth of it. Was, flashlight's got 2 batteries in it. One of the batteries was pretty easy to find. The other battery was inside like this small locked box. The key to that was inside a remote control car battery compartment that needed a screwdriver to unscrew. The screwdriver was hanging inside. No, the screwdriver was inside a wine bottle that the cork was way too tight for her to get by hand, and breaking the glass was against the rules. The corkscrew was inside a giant pretzel jug with a padlock on it. The combination of the padlock, left and right, was hidden on a pair of shoes, left foot, right foot. One of the shoes was locked in the cabinet under the TV that was chain closed with a directional lock. Have you ever seen those? It's like a lock. You do a sequence of directions, and you can do it in the dark. And the solution to that was in a maze that was rolled up in a bottle, which had another lock on it, a numeric lock, which was written on a piece of paper that was scribbled red. And in pencil, it had the code written on it, but you can't see it until you put like a red film over it. And that's just to get 1 battery.
Yeah, that sounds very much like the logic required to beat an old school Resident Evil or a Metroid game. That's basically how those ones worked. It was just like you walk into a room and the room is the puzzle, do the obscure thing to figure out the puzzle. Except the obscure thing usually meant you were doing 15 to 20 different actions that you didn't even know were connected until all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, they opened up this series of locks that do this thing that gets me out of the door.
Yeah. Chemic String says, could have made a video out of that. If he's referring to what I was describing, then yeah. We started recording that, but once we realized it was going to take like 2 hours, and we stopped. And that was years ago anyway. Mr. Logic was the name of the game, if you remember. You're talking about the escape game specifically. There's endless amounts of those if you look online. I don't remember which one specifically. I didn't play a lot of them. I already had the idea in my head before I really played any of those. But yeah, I love tormenting people with puzzles and whatnot.
And then I guess that's why the codes immediately attracted you at that point.
Yes.
I actually still need to play the Monkey Island games for the puzzles and stuff that are in those. Yeah, pretty much a lot of your old school point-and-click adventure games are just giant logic puzzles is all they are. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I actually remember those. Monkey Island. Wow.
I definitely need to play them. See that Melly has actually hopped into the chat. Melly is one of the ones who is part of the Kick Chat that I am part of, or tentatively part of. Sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not. But they actually directed me to Steve McRae, and that's how I got to know Steve, and finally, managed to get on his channel today, and a few other times to talk about stuff. But they're actually the reason that I was able to get in contact with Steve at all, because I didn't even know Steve existed. That was outside of my YouTube sphere at the time.
Yeah. Mr. Logic asked how I figured out there was a code. I actually saw the first code, and I recognized the characters, and actually could read the characters because I've done that myself. I can almost read in those characters. I do it so much. Like I've taken my coworker's computer and switched it to that font as a system's font as a prank. That was pretty funny. But I didn't realize it was like a hidden code. I thought it was. I didn't even cross my mind because it was so obviously in front. And I only realized that it was supposed to be a hidden code after Jason broke the first one, and Suris announced that.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea of the first one, was just to hide it in plain sight, and it worked. It kept people from saying anything about it for a while. Charisma asked if those are my only evolutions. Currently, they are. Fun story: my ex of 4 years, we used to have I had my evolutions and she had hers, and we had all of them together, but we had them in the dashes of our car. They actually have, you can't really see it on that one. Some of them still have some Velcro on the bottom, which is what we use to keep them on our dash. But when we broke up, she took her evolutions with her, and I have not finished replacing all of them yet. So, yeah, that was 2-ish years ago, so I've been very lazy there. Yeah, I will say that there was definitely a modicum of frustration whenever I got that email from you, Chaosism, and you were just like, "Oh, by the way, found your code. It was this." I'm just like, really? That was fast.
Oh, I would hate to see what you've done if I didn't feel like going through it the long way, and because I could have had it done in probably a good 15 minutes.
I assumed that because it was done so quickly that you had done it the short way, just translated the last one into its Arial font, recognized there was a pattern of numbers because I left spaces in, and then figured out the pattern of letters from there, and then backtracked.
Yeah, I actually never converted that last one to Arial. I never did that. It wasn't a necessary step.
Yeah, because you already were able to read it. You recognized the font.
Yeah.
Hey, there's the confirmation that I am, in fact, wearing pants.
Okay, that's a good thing, I suppose.
Well, Mr. Logic asked, I think it was Mr. Logic a while, who asked, "Suris, are you wearing my shoes?" And somebody else asked, the real question is he wearing pants?
Yeah, I can see that following.
And I definitely do not take the godless engineer approach. I definitely do wear pants. Though this time I'm not sitting on the couch because that started to get way too uncomfortable. I'm still positioned here because that's where my computer setup is, and I'm incredibly lazy. But yeah, no.
Well, I guess especially since it's so warm, but then we're getting into way too much information there, and we should probably change the subject.
Yes, that is why I'm sitting next to an open window. And yeah, no, that's definitely getting into the personal life of Suris and why he burns to death as he makes videos next to a hot computer. Though I think
okay.
all things... continue? Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was going to say something useless.
It's not really useless. This is your time. You broke a code.
Oh, my time isn't worth anything. But, yeah, I don't even use air conditioning or anything like that, because my brain isn't properly connected to the rest of me, and I don't feel temperature very well at all, nor pain, nor many other things.
Oh, shit.
Ignorance is bliss is kind of the main thought there, I suppose.
Understandable. Yeah, Pam decided she was going to throw a picture at me.
You don't want that other piece of corn?
If you would like to take the last piece of my corn, then sure.
Good corn never goes to waste.
I have lost the corn on the cob that I did have for dinner to Pam. Hopefully this stream doesn't end the way the last one did, with Pam having to go to the hospital. That would suck.
Well,
You know, I know why yours is dry.
did not see
Looked
that.
it out.
Yeah, she when I had my stream with Secular at the end, she had chest pains, and so we had to go to the hospital to make sure that everything was okay there.
Yeah.
You
I know where that concern goes. I
said just
take
out
people
of
to the
breath.
hospital.
Pam is literally standing right here, but she's just out of frame, so it's impossible to see her.
Gotcha. She didn't take your corn yet, right?
Oh no, she's eating the corn.
Okay, I'm sure it's amazing. So,
Purple Rhymes with Orange says that I thought that Sarah stole Cosmological's shoes. I did. Apparently, Mr. Logic is upset that I didn't show the cat. Well, I plan on only having the stream open for maybe another 10-ish minutes. So if anybody has any final questions, definitely get those out there for me and Chaosism.
Mr. Logic, whatever he does has to comply with the cat's free will. You can't interfere or impede with that.
True. I think Pam might actually be going on a quest to bring a cat over here. I think it's Hylia specifically.
I brought the cat that doesn't fight me.
Okay, come here, Hylia. This is the marshmallow cat. There we go.
Askins. Why is the atheist symbol not included in the famous coexist bumper sticker? Where would you put it?
Where is it? Would you make it coexist? There we go, Mr. Logic. Are you happy now?
See, atheists are always excluded. They never
He's a
fit
very
in.
sleepy kitty. I pulled him from his nap.
The cat is officially here. That way, Mr. Logic can now not be upset and say that the stream was not worth watching because there were no cats involved. It's here. Okay, you want to hop down? I don't know where he's going to go, but
Somewhere.
yeah.
Away.
Away, off to sleep somewhere, more than likely.
Hell yeah.
That is Hylia, because we are Zelda fans, and when we got the cat, they had not grown their genital region perfectly well yet, so we thought it was a girl.
Drop until he was ready to fuck.
Yeah, the balls didn't drop until he was ready to start trying to mount the female cats that we have. So as soon as we recognized that this is not a female cat, this is a male cat, we scheduled a visit to get him fixed like that.
I don't know where Fluffball is.
Where Blackie went? I don't know. Yeah, Mr. Logic says that he's lucky because his cat would have bit him 8 times by now. Now our cats are
they're not biters.
They're definitely not biters. They are. Hylia is a bottle-fed cat. Like when we rescued Hylia, they were too young to eat any type of hard food, so we had to actually feed them formula from a bottle. So they pretty much will not bite people because they view people as mom cat. So the biter thing doesn't really necessarily happen there. Well, thank you so much for my corn on the cob back with sans the corn. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Do you maybe want to get in the frame so that it's not just dead air of Pam like looking at things?
I'm just wondering what's going on over there.
I'm munching away on corn.
No, other people are wondering what's going on over there. You should probably come into frame for like a minute. 30 seconds. More than your hand. That is... I'm sure there's a conversation that can come from this. Though it's not coming to mind. With that said, Chaosism, is there anything that you would like to say? Anything that... I know, obviously, plugging your channel, I've already put that there, so maybe not necessarily that, especially since you haven't had a lot of time to get to it lately.
Yeah, time and motivation. That's kind of the problem, because I don't really sleep much either, so...
We saw the wrist, people.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I could be up days on end and whatnot pretty easily.
I don't necessarily have that same luxury. I can stay up for about 29-ish hours, and after that my body starts to go, okay, Chris, it is time for you to pass out.
It is a very naked wrist, Bionic Dance.
Yes,
I think
she would
the longest...
Go on. Sorry.
I interrupted you. I was going to say, I think the longest I've been up straight is about 5 days in between running people to hospitals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely can't do that. Eric asks, is this really the stream you asked for, Chaosism?
Got naked wrist.
Yeah, like I said, I mentioned real early in the thing too. I completely neglected when he said a live stream was part of it. So when he mentioned that again, I'm like, oh, oops.
It's like, oh yeah, that is a thing. And granted, if anybody cracks a code and says they do not want the live stream, you don't have to take it. It's just one of the available things that's there for cracking them. So you were able to say, no, I definitely don't want that, and I could have been like, that's cool.
Well, now it's too late.
It's definitely too late. This is one of those times where you're like, you gave me this information now?
They're very worthwhile. Great to talk to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like I like getting to know my fans, or just people who watch my channel. If they hate me, that's fine. I still like to get to know them because I'd like to get to know why they hate me. Maybe I'm masochistic.
But a dead stream from Bionic Dance just filling the chat with puns. It's her specialty.
It really is. And then if you get her in a chat, sometimes her specialty becomes talking about body fluid like snot.
I'm tempted to compete with her about the pun thing because I can do that too, but probably not to the same depths that she goes to.
Probably not. You probably also don't have the props she has for them too.
No.
No. that I forget which. I think it was the stream on my channel where she just started showing Dawn the different props that she has, from the paddle to the sound buttons on her phone for different jokes and stuff.
Yeah, I did see that one live. That took a disturbing route a couple times.
As soon as Godless Iowan came in, it just devolved into fecal matter and bodily fluids and all kinds of. I was tempted to just, like, after that video, just go, and this stream is now unlisted.
Yeah.
I was tempted to do that, but I've kept it up.
So Bionic Dan says she likes puns. Have you seen the study on puns that they held?
I have not seen a study on puns. This sounds fantastic.
Basically, they did a study. They took a bunch of people in a room and they told them 10 different puns, one after the other, to gauge their laughter and their reactions. At the end, they concluded that basically everything was a wash, because after they tried to determine which were the funniest, they determined no pun in 10 did, in terms of which one's making them laugh. And I told that. And I told that pretty terribly, but no, it wasn't really stunning. No pun in 10 did. It wasn't real. It was a poorly told pun.
It was a pun told with a straight face the entire time.
It's not mine. I didn't make it up.
I think that would have hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it probably would have hurt worse if I told it more smoothly than I did.
Probably. But I think the way you told it was painful enough.
Yeah.
I think that might actually be the best way to close out the stream too. Leave it off with the horrible, painful pun.
And you can blame Bionic Dance for bringing that up.
I'm perfectly fine with blaming Bionic Dance for that. Also, JMD Apologetic said, hey, I should need to get with them because we have a collaboration we're probably going to be doing at some point about Young Earth creationism. I don't know when we're going to be doing it.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, JMD, if you can get with me at some point, probably on Twitter, so we can hash that out and see what we can do. But with that said, if you have any closing remarks, now would be the time to give them. My only closing remarks would be, on the off chance Chaosism is able to get some more things uploaded to his channel. He does have a really good channel, and I would definitely go subscribe to him. He's linked in the description, as well as my Discord and everything else that's usually there. But go ahead and click there, give him a subscribe, check out his stuff. Even if he doesn't upload anything in the next month or two, the stuff that is there is definitely worth a watch.
And I would definitely request any kind of negative or critical comments. I mean, not just, this is stupid, because that's pretty useless. That's kind of the whole point I made the videos, was to see where I might be wrong, rather than assert my correctness.
That's fair. Echo chambers are not good.
I hate them.
All right. With that said, guys, this was Chaosism. He broke the second code. So if anybody is inclined, please try to break the third code. It has been out for since he broke this one, so about, what, 2 months now, something like that? Some absurd amount of time compared to the amount of time he cracked the second one. So,
well, the third one might be solved too, but we probably shouldn't comment on that.
We'll have to find out.
Can I sell the answer?
I would prefer you not.
Okay.
Remember the rule. You are only allowed the one. Once you've cracked the one, you're out of the running.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise, we would just have, and the 15th code cracked by Chaosism. Which would be very awkward.
Probably.
More than likely.
All right. Well, thank you again, and have a good night.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.